Nigeria at 57. We've been looking at security, having a very interesting conversation about security and what's going on in the country right now. I've been having that discussion with members of the panel here. And let me quickly introduce a retired naval officer, Rear Admiral Francis AKPAN, as he joins us. Hello and welcome to the program.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And I know you've been following discussions, at least following what we were talking about today. And let me just ask you this. There was a time when Independence Day was marked by people lining the streets, you know, with flags, going to the stadium, watching, you know, children march by and all that. Now you have the Inspector General of Police ordering, you know, for us to have troops or his men on the way, just to ensure that we can actually have this independence peacefully, you know. Yes, we are at peace, but what sort of peace are we enjoying at this time?
Thank you for inviting me. Growing up, I also took part in the march past, holding flags when I was a boy in Saple, in primary school. And I think we took part on Independence Day whilst in secondary school in James Wells Shemevo in Delta State. And so I enjoyed celebrating independence at boyhood. I think we were also given plastic cups with the national flags in them, and of course with the dates, October 1st, etc. But things have changed. At that time, I remember growing up, we could sleep with our windows open. We never had burglary proofs in our homes. But by the 70s, people started building fences and erecting barbed wires and what have you. And of course, the influx and introduction of burglary proofs and guards and dogs and what have you. So things have changed. The dynamics of insecurity in the world is not the monopoly of any state. If you're discussing insecurity in Nigeria, the same affects other parts of the world. We are not isolated from the indifference of insecurity in the world, from the issues of kidnapping, from the issues of militancy, agitations that have climaxed to what we saw in Southeastern State and things like that. So on a day like this, I'm not surprised that the Inspector General has decided to deploy. I don't know which areas, but I think it was specifically to areas where they thought that the threats of agitations were higher, because you cannot also say that, for example, in Lagos, there was no need for any form of deployment. I'm just driving in from VGC, and it was peaceful. It took me 1 hour to get here, and there wouldn't have been any need for any deployment. And of course, I did not see any patrol vehicle on the road from VGC down here. But there are some areas, some aspects of the country, some parts of the country, in which these are quite necessary. I came back from Eket on Thursday in Akwa Ibom, and there were no needs to there were no reasons to have patrol vehicles from Eket to Utila. I boarded the plane and came back. So yes, based on whatever insecurity reports is being given, that would of course determine the kind of deployment and the essence of the deployment of security forces or police forces in some parts of the country.
Now, while we are not immune to challenges of insecurity, like you were saying earlier, what people do criticize some of the security forces for is their approach to tackling those challenges. So you find that there isn't a concerted effort among the various security agencies, and so that is actually the criticism, the major criticism that we have.
There is a lacuna in the deployment of military forces in Nigeria. I tell you what, the present national defense policy expired in 2012. I was privy to be part of the formulation of the last one that was signed into law in 2007. I was defense advisor in South Africa when it was drafted under the headship of Late General Garba. And I remember that it was properly done, well done, and it took about 5 years to be scrutinized by our segment of society. Getting to the approval by the president and signing into law in 2007. And by 2012, it expired, because for defense policies, you look at short to mid-term, which means that for a 5-year lifespan, that was quite creditable. But we haven't had anyone since then. I was part of a draft committee in 2015, January, and I think it has gone back to the shelves, which meant that we've been deploying the defense establishment and military forces through either executive orders or by SOPs, and that's not good enough. You will not, if you do that, without a defense policy, you will not be able to ascertain the efficiency of the armed forces. Its deployment will not be as regimental or as structural as it should be, because the defense policy tells you what you want to defend, how you want to defend it, and why, and how. First, what you want to defend, how you want to defend, and how you should defend it. It all spells out there. It tells you about your relationship with the press. It talks about military assistance to civil authority. It reckons on the issue of military assistance to civil power, especially the Nigerian police, especially as it pertains to deployment, especially and stringently to internal security issues. And this is not available. And the absence of the defense policy creates, therefore, a lacuna as to why are we deploying, who is deploying, and for what. That lacuna is serious, and I think that legislation must rise up to this occasion and impress on the executive that there's the need to provide for the military the defense policy. The defense policy, don't forget, is a precursor to the other policies. The government policy, which otherwise is known as the Grand National Strategy, the foreign and internal policy, the security policy, and then, of course, the defense policy. Because you don't have a defense policy, I am willing to say that we might just have riders in the other policies, in the absence of the other policies. So we need to get those policies right, and then we can deploy properly.
Now, AIG ADMIRAL,
yes.
in your role in the police, of course, we've come to the issue of actually tackling the issue of security challenges. Admiral AKPAN has mentioned this issue of deployments. A lot of deployments have taken place in the not too distant past, from the northeast to the southeast to the south-south and all of that, to take care of challenges. Could you perhaps walk us through what a typical deployment process is?
Thank you. You see, the Nigeria Police Force, I'm talking for your police experience.
Yes.
Nigeria Police Force is a national force. If you look at section 214, 215 of the Constitution, there you will find the terms, I mean, under the ground norm, what and what should be the requirements of the police, how they are deployed and so on, who has the power to deploy them and what have you. In deployment, you have to consider so many issues. Is the man you are deploying, is he capable? Is he qualified to be deployed to these areas? How can you function in a particular insecurity situation? Now, there are so many issues that are coming up with the police deployment. For example, you have issues where there have been allegations of people, being deployed who are not qualified to be deployed to a particular place. People claim that they are being unduly punished, punitive deployments and so on and so forth, even in the military as well. So that is why you have a lot of people are not dedicated when it comes to performing their duties. So we have deployments in the northeast, quite all right. We have deployments to the southeast. A lot of police officers have been moved to the southeast and the south-south and so on because of perceived insecurity. And the last speaker was talking about proliferation of small arms and light weapons. That is another issue, because if people are armed and you deploy troops to these areas where people are armed, you always have the situation of escalation of a crisis. Then you have the issue of supply and demand. Why do people demand for small arms and light weapons? They do so because they want to commit crimes. They want to get involved in drug running.
What if they want to defend themselves against attack?
Yeah, but there are laid down rules if you want to defend yourself with arms. If you want to defend yourself from insecurity, there are laid down procedures. You have the Firearms Act. People have to normally apply for a license, which I understand have been withdrawn. So right now, a lot of people don't have access to this license. But then a lot of arms are coming in. Like I said, I was talking about demands. A lot of things are coming in here into our country, especially from the northeast, from Libya, where when Gaddafi regime collapsed, there were thousands and thousands. If you read the memo from the CIA, there are thousands and thousands of weapons. They were floating all over the place, and most of them found their way to Libya, to to Niger, to Chad, to Nigeria. That is why you have a lot of people who are armed today. What you are seeing at the ports, the arms that are coming through the ports, are just the tip of the iceberg. If you recover one, more than 20 have already passed. Because there are so many porous borders.